Welcome back to Kings of Columbus. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis. Bill, you're still in Dallas. Are there just Ohio State fans just roaming around the breakfast buffet, jumping up and down, celebrating?
I just got back from the breakfast buffet and was lightly attended. I was a little surprised by that. No, I don't like. I think I said before, like they put us in a weird spot. Like we're not around Ohio State fans. It was like the media and then some other conference for I don't even know what HVAC or something like that. Was here. Their company HVAC. Color is red, so there was a lot of red in the hotel. There just weren't a lot of Ohio State fans.
Yeah. All right, so we have a lot of responses from Ohio State fans that were pouring in after the game. We have some survey results. Bill, I would like to do a midweek Kings of Columbus before the title game that more fully encapsulates the feelings of this ride, of what it has been like for an Ohio State fan this year. Because I don't think we have to wait until it's over to do that. I think we can capture it here in this before the final step, because I do, and I need to think about it more. We need to get more responses from our great, educated, dedicated, loyal Ohio State texters who will help us understand this. But I don't think it's too much to say it is unlike any season in Ohio State history, primarily because they've never had this kind of opportunity in a season where they lost to Michigan. And that is not to belabor the Michigan point, but from an emotional standpoint, for any Ohio State fan, there's no bigger low than losing to Michigan. And then for any Ohio State fan, like the two highest highs are when you beat Michigan and when you win a national title. So in the same year, but the low of not winning a national title, I'm not sure is quite the same, because it's like it's hard to win a national title, right? So I would say the farthest, the greatest emotional swing that you can have in any single season for an Ohio State fan is to lose to Michigan and then win a national title. And they are on the precipice. They have that opportunity to do that, which makes it unlike any season in Ohio State history.
Yeah. I mean, the closest thing we'd have to it was 2022. And like, I did sense a different vibe in that postseason, even after the loss to Georgia. But this is very different than that. And maybe that's just because the opportunity to win a national title is obviously still out there. So yeah, it's certainly unlike anything I've experienced in my 11th season covering Ohio State. I feel like I have felt that from the fan base, throughout the last month and a half, whatever it's been, like the utter devastation. I thought quickly like rebounding into, man, this is a really cool ride that we're on with Ohio State. So I would love to dive into that more, because it is unique, and we're probably I don't know, we'll probably experience it again, I'm sure, at some point in the future. But for the first time experiencing it now, it is quite remarkable.
Yeah, so we want to do a little bit of feelings here. We'll do bigger feelings in the middle of the week. We're going to do ball all week on the podcast feed on KOTN. So today is going to be a little bit of a mix of feelings and football. I'm throwing this out there again. Like we're just talking, right? We're not jinxing anything. We're just talking, and we're not making any assumptions. Nobody is assuming anything, even though Ohio State is a favorite in the national title game. What is your favorite Ohio State football season of all time? Landis, the choices I gave were 1968, 2002, 2014. Not to jinx anything, but it could be this one or other. So of those choices, what do you think won as currently the leader for our audience's favorite Ohio State season?
I might still say 2002.
37% 2014. 30% not to jinx anything, but it could be this one. 28% 2002, 5% other, 1% 1968. We've talked about this at various times. I mean, a lot of this is just generational. It's about when things hit in your life, but it's kind of nice here. There was like a generation and a half between 1968 and 1970 up until 2002 who never had this. But now we're certainly far enough removed from 2002 where there are people who experienced that, who now are experiencing it maybe with their children or just experiencing it at a different time of their lives. But we're also kind of far enough removed from 2014 for there to be a whole new crop of Ohio State fans that could say, I was 7 and it was cool, but now I'm 17. Or I was in high school and it was cool, but now I'm an adult. Like 10 years is enough for fans to have transformed. Like if you're 40 or you're 50, once you get to be like me, nothing matters. Everything's the same. Life is just, there's nothing left. There's nothing left. You're just sitting around. It's great, but you're not different. But there are people who are decidedly different humans than they were in 2014 who are now taking all of this in an entirely different way.
Yeah, I actually can relate to that quite a bit because like I was in kindergarten in 1993 when the Phillies went to the World Series and lost to the Blue Jays. And all I remember is like a bunch of hairy fat guys played baseball and like they seemed like they were fun. But like I don't remember the emotions of that. Whereas like I remember the emotions very much of like 2008 and the years around that. So I totally get that. I don't know. I am a little surprised that well, I guess I'm not totally surprised. Mildly surprised that 14's ahead of 2002. But I do think when it's all said and done, if Ohio State pulls this off, this one will supersede all of them just because of the rarity of it.
We're really like, we're going to have an off season on Kings of Columbus of just doing therapy and talking about feelings the whole time, and not even in a bad way. But now I am very intrigued by this question when it comes to sports and also life, because what is sports but an encapsulation of the human experience? Does disappointment enhance joy? Because in 2002, you're like, look at you, you're like, heck yeah, it does. Rub that disappointment all over me, and then let's go have a good time.
Yeah, I think most would agree. You don't want it, right? But like when it happens, you're like, oh yeah, that joy felt a little different because of the low that preceded it.
So you would, again, you could argue like 0-2, it's undefeated. It's 14-0 Boulevard. So many close calls, holy Buckeye, the Miami National Championship game, everything along the way, where it almost got away from them in a world where one mistake would have ruined you, but it never did. So you had all that tingling in 0-2 of like, oh my gosh, it's so, but you never had the actual disappointment. No Ohio State fan walked away on a Saturday disappointed in 0-2. They walked away feeling the feels because holy Buckeye, but they were never actually sad. 14, there's early sadness, that angst, sadness, worry. Are they going to get there? That permeates everything. But it's early in the year and then a build of overcoming. Will it be enough? And then it is. But the sadness is early. This is late season devastation that flips. It's just so different, Bill. But again, we don't have to do that today. I kind of want to. I kind of want to be therapist Doug. How did it make you feel? But we'll ask that later. And we will get 1,000-word essays because I'm not even sure we can understand. But it is what's so different. Late season devastation. I'm not sure. I mean, now we're doing it again. It's like what we did when we called Ohio State the most indestructible program in sports when we were at Cleveland.com and we did that series. I'm ready to start comparing this. If they do this, would anything compare to this? Because in any other sport, could you be so devastated by a single result late in the year and then have a redemption arc that ends with you on top? But no single NFL game, no single NBA game, no single Major League Baseball game. If you're in September and it's like, oh, we're the Yankees and we lost a series to the Red Sox and now we're the wild card instead of the AL East champion, but then we won the World Series. I don't know. I guess that's in the same realm, but it's not the same. We can't have the greatest rivalry in sports and then be like, oh, other things are just like it. No, it's not. This is the greatest redemption arc in the history of North American sports. Anyway, hyperbole. It's the Saturday sound off hyperbolic morning.
It is uniquely college football, and I think quite possibly uniquely Ohio State.
The greatest redemption arc in North American sports history. Yay or nay? True or false? Tell a friend. If people are noticing it, I am going to visit my daughter at college today, so I'm drinking out of a Northwestern cup. Don't be offended. It's just like, I'm going to see my kid, right? I'm going to see my daughter. I have to drop off a Ninja Crispy because she went back to college and she forgot her air fryer. So like, how are you supposed to live without an air fryer?
Can't be.
She's not eating.
That. Yeah.
She's not eating. She's
I'm
starting.
actually.
So
Oh, but she's not in a dorm. I was going to say I'd be surprised if you can have an air fryer in a dorm, but I guess it's,
yeah.
Kids don't live in dorms anymore.
No, she's in an apartment now for the first time. All right. What was the fun and excitement level of Ohio State's win over Texas? 10 is high, 1 is low. 9.42. It's like as good as it gets, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about as good as it gets. What was the angst and nerves level? 10 is so nervous. 1 is I was never nervous at all. 8.28. So I think that we hitting the sweet spot there, Landis, of a game. You want high fun and excitement, high angst and nerves, but you do want the fun and excitement to be higher than the angst and nerves. So it's like it's basically a 9.5, almost a 10 on fun, and like an 8 or a 9 on angst. This is where there's nothing else in your life that can make you feel that way.
I think that is the perfect game. Like I understand like a 4-quarter party, like the Tennessee game and the Rose Bowl, where like those are fun. Like who doesn't like a 4-quarter party? But this is so much better as long as you end up on the right side of it, right? Like it's the you need the dip, you need the low for the high to feel as good as it possibly can.
Oh my God, I just want to do feelings. I want to feel all the feels. Let's feel, but we got to talk about ball because I did rewatch the goal line stand and like there's ball all over the place. But we're heading down that path, Landis. I can't help it.
We just need we need the people. We can't we need their stories. Yeah,
we need their stories. All right, here's a little story from Will. I spent like this one. Is it like this that we're gonna do like on Wednesday for 3 hours? Will says, I spent the final 2 minutes of the game bawling my eyes out. It was so perfect that it was Jack. He made a play in the Michigan game that should have made him an all-time Buckeye, and the offense and coaching staff stole that from him. He got a second chance and did it. This program has spent most of the last 6 years coming up short of great things, and I almost forgot what it felt like as a kid during the Tress and Urban years when they would never let me down. Last night, the joy returned. All right, we're doing all feelings. What am I doing? Who cares about football? It's how this sport makes you feel. Let me do this one. This is Luke, who was at the game. I was there, and this was the third playoff game I've been to. Before this, it was both of the Clemson losses, the 31-0 loss and the Justin Fields last play pick. Having that in the back of my mind scared me the entire game. And it was definitely the most emotional game I have ever watched or been a part of. I love this team so much, and having Jack do that to end the game was the absolute perfect ending. Again, we are assuming there is a chunk of this audience, Bill, that did watch and listen to Kings of the North on Friday night, but not everybody did. You were there in that stadium. Can you just give us a little encapsulation again of what to you the vibe was like there?
On that play specifically or in general?
Just vibes in general, and then the way Jack capped it. But that Luke is saying it was the most emotional game he's been a part of.
Yeah, I think it was a unique atmosphere by bowl game standards, just because it was played. What are we, 3 hours from Austin, wherever we are? So I felt like it was a 50-50 split. I know on television people were saying 7-30. Maybe it was more like 60-40. I really don't think it was 70-30. The Texas crowd was very loud. The Ohio State crowd, I thought maybe was not quite as loud, or it also could have been where we were positioned in the stadium. But anyway, having that back and forth between the two crowds, because both teams had highs, both teams had lows. They were just like playing emotional tennis like across the stadium the entire game, because I think it was like Ohio State fans were on the south side and Texas fans were on the north side. It felt like Red River rivalry to me a little bit when you see the crimson and the burnt orange split. This was burnt orange and scarlet split in AT&T Stadium, so that was very cool. But it just provided for I think a almost wholly unique bowl game, like quote unquote neutral field experience. And then there were 2 times in the game, obviously, where an Ohio State player, just put this Texas side of the stadium into stunned silence. And the first was Trevion Henderson's screenplay at the end of the first half, and then the second was Jack.
Yeah,
I think the thing about you can see the sack coming, right? Like you can see that Jack wins off the line. You can see that he's going to hit Quinn Ewers, and then you do see the ball come out, and it's like, man, what a play! But then it's just like it was like. angels in the outfield, just like bounce the ball up into his hands perfectly. In a game where like the ball, I think a few times didn't bounce Ohio State's way. It bounced its way. It bounced Ohio State's way, like in the perfect moment to create. I thought a deserved legendary play for Jack Sawyer, who, as was mentioned earlier, had that moment in the Michigan game that doesn't stand up because Ohio State didn't win that game. It's awesome that he got to like a redemption opportunity there, and now I think you can remember that. I said last night, I think you can remember the Michigan play a little more fondly, even in a loss, because this play happened on Friday night in the Cotton Bowl.
And the thing is, like, the bounce didn't matter because it was 4th down, and if it doesn't bounce to him, Ohio State. But for the script, and what is better in sports than a guy running down the sideline and 150 teammates and staff running with him, next to him, and like that view of that it wasn't actually a necessary moment for the game. The strip sack was, the sack was, but the fumble return wasn't. But it was necessary. It was an emotional release. Mm-hmm. And those 150 players and coaches who were running along with them were representing 1 million Ohio State fans who are all, now I'm going to do it. I'm really going to do it. 1 million Ohio State fans who were running along with Jack Sawyer. And again, just to recap briefly, we talked about this on KOTN. The world, it's a big college football world out there. And Jeremiah Smith is from Florida, and Caleb Downs is from Georgia, and CJ Stroud was from California, and they were as Buckeye as you get. But this is a backyard kid. And there's something about the backyard kid making a backyard play, having a backyard moment, because there are also Ohio State fans. It's the same thing. There are Ohio State fans all over the country and all over the world. Maybe they never lived in Ohio. Maybe they never went to Ohio State. However you came, and I'm not going to go. There was like a Penn State fan who interrupted me when I was interviewing a Notre Dame fan at the Orange Bowl, and he was like, "Ask him if you went to Notre Dame. Ask him if you went to Notre Dame." And like, I think it is so douchey to be like, you're not really a fan if you didn't go to the school. And it was like a 24-year-old douchebag kid, and like there are 24-year-old douchebag kids all over the world. It's not only at Penn State there, but like you don't own a school. However you get to your team, however you get to your school is valid. But there is something about the backyard kid, because there are so many backyard kids who root for this team.
Right.
And there are so many people who grew up exactly like Jack Sawyer in Ohio, rooting for the Buckeyes their whole lives. It's not a requirement, but we can't pretend it's not a little bonus, right?
Yeah.
So when the backyard kid is doing that, he is doing it for all the backyard kids. And there are backyard kids watching this and listening to this. And the only difference between those backyard kids and Jack Sawyer is 150 pounds of skill and strength and speed. So that's all. I'm like, oh, why can't I be Jack Sawyer? It's because you have none of his skill, strength, dedication. Other than that, he's just like you. So there's something in that, Bill.
No, there is. And it's like, I'm sure I didn't, the one thing is I don't regret, but it is a little bit of a bummer. Like, we go live right away with KOTN after the show. She's like, I didn't get to go down on the field. Like, I would have loved to talk to Jack about that. We're going to talk to him. We're going to talk to him during the week, and we'll be at media day for the national title game, so we can relive some of that. But like, I bet Jack, like, because I think the years would line up. I'm sure Jack pictured himself like as Joey Bosa, like when he was a kid in Pickerington, right? And now that I think you said last night, like there are kids who picture themselves in a 33 Ohio State jersey, like they're playing in their backyard as Jack Sawyer. So like to be in like those same shoes and then to watch Jack make a play like that, it's no offense to anyone who plays for Ohio State who's not from Ohio and didn't grow up that way,
right?
But it is extra special. I think we can all understand why that's the case. Can I read?
Go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead. Yeah.
There was a text that we got during the right after that play happened that I responded to, so I don't think you saw it in the inbox. It kind of disappeared. It's short. I'll just read it real quick. It was from Ian immediately after the Jack Sawyer play. He said, "My dad's watch just gave him an alert that you may have suffered a hard fall because I was slapping him on the back so hard, picking him up and spinning him around the room."
Yeah. Yeah, like that's why you guys care about this sport. That's why anybody does this. That's why anybody's a part of this. So I want to do a lot with Jack. I want to do a lot with those 4 plays and the goal line stand. I want to do a lot with 83 yards through the heart of Texas versus 85 yards through the heart of the South. I actually have a question on that, but there's a couple more things just about like the way Ohio State collectively took care of this that I want to get your thoughts on. This is from Will. That is a game that Ohio State loses all of the last 5 years. Felt like all those games, the offense is sputtering. The Ferrari is back in the school zone, and we are repeatedly asking the defense to save us. But they finally overcame that. Texas scored to tie it at 14, and Ohio State had not had a sustained drive since the first drive. Then Ohio State comes out and passes it like 8 straight times until the 4th down conversion on the Howard run. That is growth. Against Michigan, that drive goes 3 and out after running into the defensive tackles 3 straight plays. At no point in games like this in the last 3 to 5 years has the offense been able to get up off the mat for one crucial drive, give the defense time to get their air back, and then Sawyer sealed it. Ball game. So I think they're getting, this is like all this complimentary football stuff, but the point that you have made very well with some of your stats over the past couple of years is Ohio State's defense in these games had often played very well, but they were the defense that gave up a drive in the 4th quarter. The Michigan game is an example of that. I was saying, like, you can't put the Michigan loss on the Ohio State defense, but the fact of the matter is that Michigan ate up the whole 4th quarter because Ohio State's defense couldn't get off the field. But this idea of pairing this, the offense does it, and then the defense makes the stand. It's true, right? This is what they had not done, and they did it.
Yeah, it's 100% true. I don't know. I don't know that I ever thought like Ohio State's going to lose this game, but Ohio State has lost this game a lot under Ryan Day. Like against a good team, it's in the balance as you go to the 4th quarter, and you just don't trust they're going to make the plays on offense and defense they need to like really like take the game back from an excellent team, which I think Texas is. And then they did it. It was 13 plays, 88 yards, I think, was the offensive drive. They convert 3rd and 8. You get an incredible play from G. Scott on 3rd and 9 to set up 4th and 2, and then you convert the 4th and 2. Like it's just not a I guess metal's the right word that the offense has shown in those like super crunch time moments. They've been so close like a couple times. Maybe the Notre Dame game in 2023 rises to that level at the end of that game with the 2-minute drill. But like even like the Oregon game, right, mid-season, it's like they're moving it, but they couldn't make that last play. And they finally did it in this game against a very good Texas defense. And then Ohio State's defense, like it wasn't perfect on that drive. They let Texas get down to the 1-yard line. It was first and goal from the 1 with a chance to tie the game. But then they set them back, and we can talk about that a little more. So it was just I think it's a necessary characteristic of championship teams, and it's one that I think has more often eluded Ryan Day's teams when they've needed it the most. And they found it, and that's not nothing. Like that is we learned something about this team, I think, and this coaching staff that they can actually rise to the occasion in those moments, which should give fans, I think, a ton of confidence with one more game left to win.
Jeff K. Despite this game being so much closer than the first 2 playoff games, this one has me feeling happier than I have after an Ohio State win in a long time. Everything this team and coach stands for and is fighting for is almost impossible not to root for. The way they fight is beyond admirable. Every time it seems like they're toast or finished, they continue to fight. As much as people outside of this fan base view the flag incident after Michigan, that represents everything about these guys and shows exactly why we're in this spot. They truly have put everything into this, and it makes it so easy to root for as a fan. This brings back great memories for me as a Buckeye fan and makes me really wish my grandfather, who passed away in 2016, and is one of the reasons I'm a diehard Buckeye fan, was around to see this. I love this team. This is one of those, Landis, where like this is and I think a lot of it's unfair, but people do it sometimes. Like, nobody wants the world to change. Everybody likes things the way they were back in the day, the kids today, NIL, portal, whatever. And James Franklin, and I think to a large degree correctly, was really trying to claim this, I think, for Penn State. Like we wear the old time uniforms and we're not built on transfer portals. And this is a team that any Penn State fan in the 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s or 90s or 2000s would have been proud of, right? That win and the way that, again, these guys have been through it, this is the kind of thing that, like, you want to go back, you want to tell Ohio State fans in the 40s about, like, you gotta see these guys. And this is one of those, again, where I want to throw it 90 times a game. I think it's cool that they have the best receivers in the country, right? I thought, like, but all of that, but like that they did this when Jeremiah Smith had one catch and it wasn't flashy, it was gritty. Flashy works too. And guess what? Flashy against Tennessee and Oregon worked great. Remember when Jeremiah Smith had like 150 receiving yards in every game and it felt like nobody could cover him? That was not that long ago. Yeah. But people like gritty, brother, don't they? People like grit.
I think people do like grit. If you caught them in an honest moment, they might say they like grit more. Grit will make you pull your hair out over the course of the game a little bit. It's not as fun as it's happening to you, but I think the end result of a gritty win, I think, is more enjoyable, like as I said before, than the flash. The flashy kind of wins. And I think and it's more important for, I think, Ohio State too, because like I guess I speak for myself, but I assume fans felt this way. Like I just didn't know that they had it. Like I didn't know that they could do it if they found themselves in a game like this. Like the way that they were playing in the playoff, I certainly thought it was possible that Ohio State could just keep the pedal down, start really fast against Texas. It never gets uncomfortable, and they party their way into the national championship game. That was one possible outcome of this game. If it became a game like what it became on Friday night, you could guarantee me that was the case, I don't know that I would have felt great about Ohio State winning that game, just because of like what we just said, right? They haven't done it all that often under Ryan Day, and we're not that far removed from like a real clunker from this team. So I think people like gritty, but gritty, especially when that factor was still a bit of an unknown for this team coming into it.
It is the thing that Ryan Day has actually been searching for, and sometimes too much. Like the toughness conversation, it's this. But here's what I think the advice from this is: when you are supremely skilled, try flashy first. But if flashy doesn't work, then be ready to win it tough. But maybe don't start trying to win it tough, because flashy might get you there. And so they did, like they came out throwing the ball. It's all the stuff that we've talked about, that they are more skilled, right? Especially Matthew Golden goes out for Texas, but they are supremely skilled. But when that skill wasn't working, then they also found a way. But you know what also really worked? You shoot Travion Henderson out of a cannon, right? I don't know. Is that grit, or is that just like, oh my God, you said, is he the fastest running back in college football? Or did you say he's the fastest running back in the history of college football? Because again, you can't have the chance to win on grit at the end if you don't have a couple shoot out of cannon guys to keep you in the game.
I don't know how I've covered Travion Henderson for 4 years now and not realized until the last game how fast he is. I don't know. Like maybe it's just because he's fresh and he is legitimately faster than he's ever been, but he looks like he should be on the Olympic track team. Like he should be running the 100 meter wherever the next Olympics are. That's how it looks like legitimate 4.3 speed. It was set up, that play was set up so well. And then like the blocks just kind of like lined up, and I'll give credit to Austin Ward, who was sitting next to me, because before Travion actually broke through, Austin said he's gone, because like you knew how explosive he is, and it just like parted for him perfectly, and no one's going to catch that guy in the open field. It's unbelievable.
Can we make a point here about this while we're on it from Shannon? I wanted to text you guys this before I forget. So many guys deserve credit, but I think Will Howard deserves and probably won't get any flowers for the play he made on that screen. Josh Fryer missed his block, and there's a world where Will was rattled and just threw that ball away. He jukes, moves around, and gets himself in a good spot to get it to Trey. I actually thought it was almost like he made the play better because he backpedaled so much. Like he stretched the play out and stretched the Texas defense. So however that worked, but did you notice that Will had to do a little work to get it to Travion?
Yeah, I would assume that he probably backed up a little more than is designed there, because there was pressure off the backside of the play. Obviously, you're letting guys through on that play too, right? So there's an assumption of risk there when you run a play like that. But no, I thought Will operated it perfectly. Because and I can't remember if he actually got knocked to the ground or not, but you have to be willing to, like, if you're going to get knocked to the ground, that's like part of the play. So it was great. Yeah, it was well timed. He was poised. I think he might have had to throw it off his back foot a little bit. It's not the most difficult throw in the world, but he was accurate with it, and it was a perfectly executed play against what I initially thought was a blitz from Texas. But I guess looking back on it, and Steve Sarkisian talked about this after the game, it was more like a simulated pressure. They dropped some linemen out and brought some linebackers. So they still only ended up rushing 4, I think. But even then, like, Ohio State had them right where they wanted them with that call.
I know it's part of the thing, but like that simulated pressure, so you're dropping guys out. But guess who maybe could try to track down a running back on a screen? Linebackers. Guess who's not going to track down a running back on a screen? Defensive tackles. So I mean, I don't know. It's sport. I get it, but it's like, what we should really do? Let's drop the 320-pounder into coverage to be tricky. I get it. I understand it. It's just one of those things. When it doesn't work, it looks ludicrous.
Well, that's what happened on Texas's second touchdown.
Yeah. So I get it, but you really got to nail it. You've got to guess right, because if you guess wrong, you have big lumbering dudes in space, and it's like, who thought this was a good idea? So anyway, but Ohio State made him pay, which is the whole point. Let's make Kirk Herbstreit's head explode. You want to do that?
Sure.
Countdown to head explosion in 3, 2, 1. This is Drew. Can the Lunatic Fringe get some credit? I'm not talking about the psychos who threaten Day's family or the players. Those are the real lunatics. When all of the criticism came to a head after the Michigan game, the program seemed deeply affected by them. I like to think this was the push they needed after all these years of underachieving. We were upset because we knew how great this team could be. Mission accomplished. Go Bucks. Lunatic Fringe made it happen. Again, this will be a debate forever, which is, I think this is going to be the version of the 2014 debate of, was it better for Ohio State that JT Barrett got hurt and Cardale Jones came in for the playoff, and you have a regular season quarterback and a postseason quarterback and a guy who got you to that point and a guy who got you over the top. This is going to be the debate of the Michigan loss. Was it good? Was it necessary? Was it the driving force? Could you take bad things that happened? Hey, JT Barrett got hurt. You know what? It was actually good. Hey, Ohio State lost to Michigan. You know what? It was actually good. And again, like, I'm like an anti-silver linings guy. Sometimes stuff just sucks. But this is going to be a conversation that will never end as it applies to this season.
Yeah, and the story's not finished yet. So, if they end up winning a national championship, I think I said it before when we talked about this. Like, I am willing to accept driving force. I don't think I'll ever be able to accept the necessary component of what happened here. I think it's possible to take a really bad thing and make the best out of it without making it seem like it had to happen for the good result in the end. But I do agree with the text, right? And we've said that a bunch of times. It's like, I don't think, as long as people were like reasonable with their criticisms, I don't think they were off base, clearly, to be upset with what happened on November 30th and like what this program was trying to do and whether or not it would ever break through to get to the other side of that. So I think it helped. Like, I definitely think Ohio State absorbed the criticism, and unfortunately some of the out of bounds over the line criticism too. That is unfortunate, but the well-reasoned criticism, I do think in some way helped them get to this point.
A point made here from Ben. What a win last night. Looking back at the playoff bracket, Ohio State's route to the title game, the Bucks have beaten the 1, 5, 6, 9, and 10 playoff seeds this season with the chance to add the 7 seed with Notre Dame. That's quite a run. So again, if we go by just like double checking this is like not seeds. This is rankings, because the rankings come out of a requirement of the structure. The rankings are just who the committee thinks the best teams are. Mm-hmm. So on this run, so Ohio State was ranked number 6 in the final rankings. They've beaten number 1 Oregon, number 3 Texas, and number 7 Tennessee. Again, this is rankings, not seedings. And they beat number 4 Penn State during the regular season. So they're number 6 in the final rankings. And they've beaten 1, 3, 4, and 7 during this year. And they're going to have to beat 5 to win the national championship. The only team they wouldn't have beaten that finished in the top 7 of the rankings is number 2 Georgia. So like this is what this structure creates, which is then when we start getting it, it's just so different when we start getting into conversations about greatest ever. You can't match this run.
No, you cannot.
And so does this end regardless of what happens in the national title game? Does this end the Ryan Day can't win big games thing and makes it only a Ryan Day can't beat Michigan thing? Because it had been connected. It's not the same, certainly related to each other, but I think some people would hammer previously the Ryan Day can't win big games thing as much as they would hammer the Ryan Day Michigan thing.
I think this confirms that. Yeah, it's a separate Michigan becomes a separate conversation entirely, and I think Ryan Day has answered the question of whether or not he can win, because that was the thing when the playoff we knew we were going to a 12-team playoff world. It was like, well, Ryan Day can't win these games. You expect him to go win 3 of them in a row? It's like, I guess that's a fair question, but guess what he's just done. So yeah, I think it does answer that question. I also saw somebody, it must have been, I don't know how it came across my feed. It must have been like an SEC fan, or maybe it was like a rival Big Ten fan who was feeling salty about what Ohio State was doing and was like trying to downplay the run that Ohio State is on because they're like winning in a playoff. They said like that includes like SMU and Boise State. It's like, first of all, Ohio State didn't play those teams. Second of all, like this is the most difficult championship path anyone will ever have to endure. And maybe they'll be more difficult. They'll be like we're in this world now, so there could be more difficult ones in the future. But no one's ever had to do this before. So yes, it answers. I think it answers every big game non-Michigan question about Ryan Day, and it should, and I think will, regardless of which team wins the national championship, frankly, go down as the most impressive national championship that anyone's ever won.
All right, I want to talk about the goal line stand. I want to talk about the 83-yard scoop and score, but can I do one mini tangent and one crazy tangent very quickly here in the middle of the show? Sure. One is you only get one for the national title game. The other one's going to be briefly abducted by aliens for 3.5 hours. Would you rather have Jeremiah Smith or Caleb Downs as your player, and which one would you choose to be abducted by aliens?
Why are you doing this to me?
I know, because I want to briefly make the point that Jeremiah Smith is the greatest freshman in the history of college football. Might go down as the greatest Ohio State Buckeye of all time, but I think I'd want Caleb Downs.
I think I would want Caleb Downs too. Because like Ohio State also has Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate. So like there's not yeah, I think
to me, it's a structure question because, again, as we talked about on KOTN on Friday night, Jeremiah Smith's presence opens up everything else. The reason Carnell Tate had a great game is, number one, because Carnell Tate is an incredible player, and Will Howard did a great job of finding him, but also because Jeremiah Smith draws such attention, you create opportunities for other guys. So nobody is saying that just because Jeremiah Smith had one catch on 3 targets for 3 yards that he didn't affect that game. He affected every single play. But especially when it's not a corner, I would argue that Caleb Downs is currently playing the position on the field where the opponent is least able to take a great player out of the game. Because if it's a great corner, you just don't throw at him. If it's a great edge rusher, you just double him. And if it's a great receiver, you quadruple team him. Right?
Yeah.
You cannot stop what he is doing. And the result is you can't lose him because not only does he affect every play, but he can directly affect every play because the position he's playing as a down backer, half linebacker, half safety, and the intelligence and skill that he possesses that is unique, he dictates. And you can't stop him the way that they could stop Jeremiah Smith. And I just find that I mean, is Caleb Downs like the most unstoppable force in college football because of those two things? A, who he is, but B, what he plays.
I think so.
and how the opponent
yeah.
is lost.
I don't know how you scheme against it, like, because it's not. They just move him around so much too. This was actually a game where he didn't play that kind of like middle safety role as much. He moved around quite a bit. Jordan Hancock had been playing like around 40 snaps of deep safety. I think he played 20 against Texas. So it wasn't quite the same structure we've seen, but they still moved Caleb Downs around. He still had a tremendous impact on the game. I guess that's like the one benefit, of having a guy like that in the second level of your defense. I asked Jim Knowles about that. We played the clip on the preview show that we did on KOTM. I was trying to ask him, and like not the best setting to do it, like sort of like the origin of this idea of how they're playing Caleb Downs. And I think what he was saying was he kind of compared it to the jack position, which like he called a float player when he was at Oklahoma State. It was just like the guy you move around the board. And he said, like, I've done that a lot with guys in the front. I've never really done it with a safety. But Caleb Downs is so good that like he has become like their float player, I guess, for lack of a better term, in the middle of the defense, where it's just like you can't double team him. You can't send two linemen 10 yards down the field to take care of Caleb Downs, right? So there's really just no way of scheming around it. And then he's just like so good in the open field. Like he is, what did he save? 2 touchdowns in the game, at least 2 touchdowns against Texas. How many times throughout the year was he in space by himself with a guy and he just made the play? Like it is absolutely primarily a credit to him and his talents, but it's also the nature of his position that you can't stop what they're going to try to do with him.
So on PFF, they have like detailed defensive snap positions. And some guys, even if it's detailed defensive snaps, it's like, okay, well, he played 58 snaps here and he played 7 here. Like Caleb Downs is because they just like they splice it so thinly. Like you could look at this and he lined up according to PFF in like 17 different spots during that game. Right. But again, he wasn't free safety like 30 out of 71 snaps, according to them, which is just like you're kind of back and you're doing that thing. Okay. That was one tangent. This is the super tangent. I apologize. Have you guys talked at all this week on the podcast about CJ Stroud versus Jim Harbaugh in a couple hours in the NFL playoffs?
Not at all.
Okay. If I was still writing, this is what I would write. When you get to the NFL, like college football fans are college football fans, and it never changes. When you get to the NFL, you're a professional. And you maybe hated somebody in college, but there's all kinds of relationships that you're on a team with a guy from your rival, right? And you're on the same team together, and now you're professional brothers. And so you don't hate that guy anymore, right? And so like there's for a fan, it never dies. For a player, like especially when it changes. J.K. Dobbins is currently playing for Jim Harbaugh. Joey Bosa is playing for Jim Harbaugh, right? So it's different. I might argue that this game is the single most college still matters. I know we're just it's a business now. But Jim Harbaugh and Michigan, and if they cheated with Connor Stallions, the single player most affected by that was CJ Stroud. If that is what really happened, and who knows what we'll ever officially ever agree on or find out, that Jim Harbaugh, as the head coach of that operation, however intimately or not intimately he was involved, cost CJ Stroud a Michigan win or 2, and very legitimately might have cost CJ Stroud the Heisman Trophy. Yeah. And this is now CJ Stroud's first chance to get back at him in this situation. And the Texans and the Chargers play at like 4:00 Eastern on this Saturday. And I would 99 times out of 100, anything related to college that's now happening in the NFL, I'd be like, it's a business. What are we doing? This is the one time when I would say it might matter. And if we were not currently neck deep in the most miraculous season in Ohio State history, I'd be doing a 4-hour show about CJ Stroud out to take down Jim Harbaugh.
I like it. I actually, aside from knowing what the Eagles are doing, I actually was unaware. I knew the Texans played today. I actually didn't know they were playing the Chargers. No, I think that makes sense. I think I feel the same way. It feels rather consequential to see CJ
Yeah.
Stroud playing against Jim Harbaugh in the NFL. Because I 100% agree that. Well, I don't know. I guess like at least from a player standpoint, that impacted CJ Stroud the most. Obviously, it impacted Ryan Day's the view on Ryan Day, but
Yeah.
CJ would have at least one Heisman Trophy. He may have a national championship trophy. Like if that didn't happen.
And usually it's one of those like, oh, you beat me. But it's like, this is more than that. This is you beat me, but perhaps you broke the rules to beat me, which is different than almost every other
I don't
thing.
think there's a perhaps. I think.
So, I mean, we're not here to relitigate that,
Yeah,
but I would imagine CJ feels that. And again, the
Sure.
two people most affected are Ryan Day and CJ Stroud. And CJ Stroud is CJ Stroud. And then CJ Stroud and Ryan Day are incredibly close. They were in lockstep for those 2 years during that entire thing. So here we go. I have to imagine that this is personal, and I will be very curious if it comes up at all during the game, because again, 99 times out of 100 to be like, they were mad at each other in college would be like, what are we doing?
Are you looking for the rare head coach opposing quarterback handshake after the game to see how that goes?
Yeah, no, I am. Actually now, especially if CJ drops 4 touchdowns on his head. Like I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm just saying it could be.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the goal line stand that leads up to the Jack Sawyer scoop and score.
Mm-hmm.
First down, first and goal from the 1. Rewatching it on the All 22 on the Gamecast, which by the way also has no announcers. I briefly, and I know some people really like him, but I briefly, when I was flying, because I was flying during half of the game on Friday night, and I was having trouble. Then I was driving back from the airport, and I was having trouble with the main feed, and I had to do the McAfee feed for like 3 minutes, and I wanted to tear my ears off. I was like, wow, that's a tough experience.
Watch. Yeah.
So, but also I really I don't normally watch the game cast, but like when you're trying to rewatch a game, oh my God, it's like I don't need the announcers for a rewatch. Like give me an all 22 look. So that's what I watched just for these 4 plays. First down. They go with the jumbo package, Texas does, and as a result, they end up with a defensive lineman as part of the offensive line for their jumbo package. And again, I understand it's a necessity sometimes, but I am often stunned in critical situations by the matchups that teams choose to create.
Mm-hmm.
I made a big deal about it. There was a goal line play in Ohio State, Indiana, where Ohio State chose to have Will Kazmarek try to block Kyle Kamara from Indiana. And it's like, hey, who's the best defensive player for Indiana? That guy. What should we do? Block him with the tight end. It's like, why would you choose to do that? And I understand things happen and things shift. They line up this defensive lineman who's like outside the left tackle. He's the additional guy. But the way the alignment goes, he winds up over JT. Guess what JT does? Smoke that dude.
Yeah.
Slips the block because he's not an offensive lineman. And he weighs 70 pounds more than JT Tuimoloau, but JT doesn't care about that because JT's a technician. So A, JT slips that block and gets penetration. B, Arvell Reese in the game, because they have 3 backers in the game, downhill like a mamma jamma. Like this is one of those, when you're great, the linebacker that you put in for like 6 plays is a baller. Like this is like how good this team is. Wait till Arvell Reese gets on the field more. One of the reasons Ohio State's defense is excellent is because Arvell Reese can't get on the field.
Yeah.
He's good.
He's very good.
Attacks.
Yeah. That was like, there was a moment where Cody Simon, it looked like his like knee hyperextended. I'm like, oh boy, I hope they don't lose Cody Simon. But then I thought I think Arvell Reese would have it if they had to play him. I think they'd be like, Cody's great. Cody's awesome. Cody's playing incredible.
Cody
football.
is
But
as valuable as anybody on the team right now.
Yeah, but just like Arvell Reese is like also good. It's like I don't know that I would have felt like it was the end of the world if Arvell Reese had to play more because he's been so good.
Arvell Reese played 6 snaps Friday night. One of those snaps, he did an incredible job of attacking downhill and getting in the backfield with JT. So they are on one side of the play, tackling the running back, and the other one is, again, it's a jumbo package from the Ohio State defensive line. Caden McDonald fights through a double team and gets in on the tackle. And it's like, okay, so how do you create this situation? You have a 4th-year 5-star who is a technician, is like, I'm not getting blocked by a freaking defensive lineman. And then you have 2 young guys who never play Caden McDonald played 7 snaps. Arvell Reese played 6. When they were in the game on the goal line, with the game on the line in a national semifinal, 1st and goal from the 1, they did exactly what they're supposed to do. And that's how you get to the legend of Jack Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like, you ever see like the, did you ever watch the Star Wars one, Rogue One? You ever watch the Rogue One thing? I don't want to ruin it. But it's like the great thing about that movie, it's about unknown people who all die. But guess what? Because for Luke Skywalker to beat Darth Vader, do you know how many people have to sacrifice themselves along the way to give Luke Skywalker a chance? And when you then create a story that it's like, oh, what's this story about? It's like, actually, it's all the anonymous people who sacrifice themselves to allow for the heroes to be heroes. I mean, Cade McDonald and Arvell Reese are fine. They're walking around Columbus today. But like, if they don't do that, they score. Like, they hand it off to the running back at the 1-yard line. How often does that work? All the time. Who made it not work? Cade McDonald, Arvell Reese, and JT Tuimoloau. So that's first down. Pretty good, huh? Pretty good. That's ball.
Pretty good. And that's not the first time Caden McDonald has done that, because Caden McDonald was instrumental in some of the goal line stops against Penn State too. Like he's a big beefy boy. He's good. He's good in those situations. But it is especially impressive because he is coming in cold oftentimes to make those kind of plays.
Yeah. So ball out on first down. Second down. Some people have observed, but actually this toss play maybe is not so terrible. Maybe it's not such a terrible call. Go ahead.
I have changed my view on it going back and watching it, because I think Texas got Ohio State into the look they were hoping to, which was Ohio State lining up in man coverage. You can run a couple guys out of the play on that side. You pull your tackle around to help seal the edge. And it's not, I've seen worse calls, I guess, but you know what they didn't account for? Caleb Downs.
My God, you don't account, because this is what happens. Kelvin Banks, the left tackle, immediately pulls on the play. Caleb Downs sees that Kelvin Banks is pulling by the twitch of his knee or whatever. He knows exactly what's happening as it starts to happen. And then he comes in behind Kelvin Banks. So he knows I'm triggering off you, and now I'm coming in behind you so you can't block me, and I'm going to pursue this, and blows this thing up. So that's A. And then the second part of it is because Caleb Downs doesn't actually make the tackle, but he blows up the play. But you know who makes the tackle? Lathan Ransom, because he refuses to be blocked by future top 10 pick left tackle Kelvin Banks. Because Lathan Ransom is like, you weigh 100 pounds more than me, and you're going to be a first-round pick, and I don't care. And in a safety-driven defense, Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom, I don't think, came off the field. One pursues it because he's so intelligent, and he reads it, and he blows it up. And the other guy is a underrated. Like, if we're going to do this by the end of the year, it's like name the most underrated Buckeyes. Lathan Ransom is a thumper.
Yeah.
That guy plays heavy. And I just thought the example of refusing to be blocked by the left tackle and cleaning up the final bits of that play. And then, by the way, Jermaine Matthews and Davison Igbinosun were also like, we're not getting blocked. So as much as Caleb Downs blew it up, but also I think Lathan Ransom, Davison Igbinosun, and Jermaine Matthews in that moment were also refusing to be blocked. And even if Downs doesn't blow it up, I'm not sure it would have worked.
I feel like most of Ohio State's defensive backs are like linebackers trapped in defensive back bodies. It's like the way they just for some reason they were genetically predisposed to not be 6'3", 250, so they're playing defensive back instead. But Lathan Ransom is a maniac out there with the way that he hits people, and and he loves it. The way that he celebrates after he hits people. It's like, are you all right, man? You really seem to embrace the physicality. He's great. He is underrated because he just happens to play next to the best safety in college football. If that were not the case, then I think he'd get his flowers a little more than he does. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Fuller, where he's just incredibly solid, and you don't appreciate probably till after the fact so much exactly how good he was. Maybe it's not quite the same thing, because I know that a lot of Ohio State fans really like Lathan Ransom. But he's awesome, and all those DBs are not afraid to stick their nose in it. And then you have the ultimate weapon in Caleb Downs, like setting the table for all of them.
71 snaps of defense, 71 snaps for Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom, 70 snaps each for Sonny Styles and Cody Simon. And I think those four.
How about 64 for Jack Sawyer?
So, I mean, like that's insane. But I really think that you have reached the point where when those four are your sort of your primary diagnose, run and chase guys to get after ball carriers, like what else do you want? What else do you want than those four guys, the way they're playing right now? So it's just it's great defense all the way around. And this is, I think, would be a good name for a band. Toss Sweep Arrogance. Toss Sweep Arrogance. What do you think about that? I could see you being the bass player for Toss Sweep Arrogance.
Yeah, that's like a grimy punk band.
Yeah. So this is Corby who suggests this. His text, that toss sweep is the perfect example of SEC and Southern arrogance. The arrogance that they have better players and better athletes when it is the exact opposite. The arrogance that Ohio State and the North are slow and plodding. This is exactly why KOTN arrived at the perfect time. One to go. Rudy sucks. Corby. But it is because like that works against a lot of teams, but for all those reasons we just described, it did not work against Ohio State.
Yeah, no, I think there's there's a lot of truth to that, because that used to be the way the sport was. We're bigger and faster than them. We'll just get to the edge and we'll score a touchdown.
Yeah,
you're not anymore.
Doesn't
you're
work
not
that
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah, you're not anymore. Yeah.
All right, third down. Ohio State. Texas is going to pass. Ohio State drops 8. They only rush 3. Really good call. You look at, there's nobody open. There's nobody open. There's like 5 guys in the route. Simon goes with the back out of the backfield, and then otherwise it's 7 guys on 4 in coverage. The only thing that I thought in the moment was maybe going to be iffy is the route the receiver ran. He ran like up and then out to the corner, and I thought there was a chance that Igbinosun was going to grab him on the break and get called for holding or pass interference in the end zone and give him first down after the 7-yard loss. Now it was going to be 1st and goal again at the 1, but he didn't. But like I like in the moment, it's like, oh, Igbinosun's on a receiver's hip and he's making a break. Could he get handsy there? He didn't. And as the prelude to his own legendary play, Ohio State rushed 3. Jack Sawyer is lined up over the right tackle and the right guard. He makes like a crossover step on the right guard, and he winds up going between the right guard and the center. The right tackle winds up blocking air because there's nothing to do. But the quickness that he showed in that moment, he gets inside the right guard and gets pressure on Quinn Ewers to force that throw when nobody is open. So they're blocking 3 rushers with 5, and Jack Sawyer still affects the play. But it was like great call, perfect execution. Again, I think these are 4 plays, honestly, of perfect defense.
Yeah, I think so. Because even like on the 4th play, there's nobody open either. And I thought that there were more than a few instances of Ohio State playing with 3 down linemen in this game. But I thought what was pretty effective for them was lining up with 3 down linemen, but then playing Jack and JT like a little more maybe interior than they typically do, so that they were attacking guards and sometimes even the center and not having to deal with like Kelvin Banks on a play like that. So I thought that was a good design by Jim Knowles.
Can we go back in the Wayback Machine and just like conjure up some other thoughts before we get to this Jack Sawyer strip sack? This is from Jason. Had sort of an epiphany. The Sawyer play is the bookend to the one, and he says Jonathan Cooper, but it actually was Zach Harrison. The Sawyer play is the bookend to the one that Zach Harrison barely missed against Georgia on their game-winning drive in 2022, and he sent me the video to rewatch it. This is Jason in Aurora, Ohio. We all knew it in the time. It was certainly discussed at the time. Zach Harrison wins against the Georgia left tackle, gets pushed a little deep, but is coming back around kind of from behind Stetson Bennett and swipes at the ball and is, I don't even know, 0.1 second late, and Stetson Bennett gets the ball out. But again, it's a nanosecond from Zach Harrison hitting his arm as he's throwing. and all of a sudden that ball is out, and we may be in this situation. And Zach Harrison is doing a version of that, is recreating, running through the heart of the South, and maybe that, like, what is that? What is that was just not quite enough? It's a great play by Zach Harrison, and it's, and this one is. I don't know what that is, other than it's life. And sometimes things go your way and sometimes they don't. But I thought it was a great call by Jason, that it just like brings it back again of what happened against Texas is reminiscent of maybe the greatest. It's not maybe it's of the greatest Ohio State win in the last 20 years, that semifinal against Alabama, and also reminiscent of one of the toughest losses, maybe the greatest loss. There are parts of this Texas win that are parts of the greatest win and the greatest loss. And now we're just get back to, this is why people say it's a game of inches. But I thought that was a great call.
I want to go back and watch Zach Harrison play now, because we like it's just a thing that is not. And Jim Knowles made a very good point of this when we talked to him on Wednesday, because he was asked like, "Hey, you guys are getting a lot more pressure with your front four now. Why is that?" Well, first is because all those guys are good, but second is because the quarterback has to hold the ball because the coverage is so good. Like, the reason Zach Harrison was a nanosecond late is because Stetson Bennett saw somebody open to throw the ball to, and part of the reason that Jack Sawyer got the ball out of Quinn Ewer's hands is because Quinn was looking to his left, and the two defenders over there were blanketed by Ohio State defenders. He had to hold the ball.
Yes.
So like it's a simple thing, right? Coverage and rush working together, like coaches say. But they've not always been as synced up as they're synced up right now for Ohio State.
Yes, I agree. All right, so you thought, again, just to finish up with this play, you thought great coverage. That again, there was, Jack made the play, but actually there was nothing there anyway.
No, I think the old Quinn Ewer's only recourse would have been to like try to scramble around and get guys running around, or try to run the ball in himself, but he wasn't going to outrun Jack Sawyer. It was again another play of perfect defense. Jack Sawyer doing was Greg Schiano, right? Match the hand thing. Get your paw up there and knock the ball out of his hand. And then the heavenly bounce into his hands to not only have it a big strip sack, but have it be the touchdown that everyone will remember.
All right, let's wrap up with these two things. Just shoving this in real quick. What are your feelings about playing Notre Dame in the national title game? Love it. Perfect opponent for the Buckeyes. Facing an alum as a coach, two Northern teams. Let's go. That won with 55% Landis. So like, people are like, Ohio State fans are fired up, right? Let's go play Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Don't care about the opponent. I'm just pumped that Ohio State's in the Natty, 30%. And I think that is always like a reasonable answer of like, we're talking about stuff and writing about stuff. And it's like, well, how did this make it? And it's like, I just want my team to win. I literally don't care about anything else. I want to watch my team win against whomever they are playing is a completely reasonable answer. I like it. It's pretty darn good. 12%. And I'd rather face an SEC team. They're more of an enemy. 3%. So this is like fired up. This is like Ohio State, Notre Dame. People are ready for it.
I think so. Like I would call it a regional rival, right? I know they don't play a whole lot. They played like 5 times in 100 years or whatever it is. But it's very much a regional rivalry. The Marcus Freeman of it all just layers something unique on top of it. It would be fun, I think, if like Ohio State was going down to Atlanta to play a national championship game against an SEC team and like trying to cut the third head off the Hydra or whatever. But this, I actually think this is cool, and this is going to be the most watched national championship game ever, right? Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then this is the last question. We have a couple comments on this. How close is the Jack Sawyer 83-yard scoop and score to Ezekiel Elliott's 85? Oh, I said 85 years. Sorry. 85 yards through the heart of the South. It is the exact defensive version of that play, the same ecstatic, big play, game-clinching feeling by an OSU legend against an SEC foe in a semifinal. It really, it's the mirror image of it. Yeah. 75% said that. Like, is that a reasonable thing? Like, it really is.
I think so. I'm happy too. I got to see this one because I didn't see Zeke's run. It's like I was actually in the press box watching this play happen.
Oh yeah. Oh, where were you in for the Zeke run?
On the elevator.
Oh yeah. Oh no, that was when you were feeling a little under the weather. That I thought possibly the answer was on the toilet for that one, but it was in the
It was on
elevator.
the elevator.
Yeah. Okay. Both are great. Zeke's was a little better, 14%. Both are great. Jack's was a little better, 8%. No offense to Jack, but nothing could ever match that Zeke run, only 2%. I actually thought there might be people who were like, listen, man, I don't know what to tell you. But Zeke plunged a sword through the Saban dragon and changed college football. Like what I really thought, and that's just no offense to anybody, but it's like, well, how do you compare anything to the greatest thing that ever happened? But that it was only 2% means that like people are open to continuing legends of Ohio State. And that was not the end all be all. Like there's more to come. So would you have voted for it's the defensive version?
I would have voted for it's the defensive version, but it's a point well made about the Nick Saban kind of factor there in that game, what the SEC was at that time. So I was going to say it's Ohio State doing it to an SEC team in New Orleans. Jack Sawyer did that to Texas and Dallas, man. It was a home. It wasn't that the crowd wasn't a home game, but like it was on their turf. And Jack did that to Texas and did it to the SEC. So I'm not going to fight you if you think Zeke's was better, but I think they're about even.
Yeah, this is Zeke's better. This is from the 937. 2 factors that make the Zeke play slightly better than Sawyer's, the most significant one being the opponent. Slaying the giant Bama in a game we were expected to lose. Still amazing, though, and much more of a reversal of fortunes. Plus, it could have happened to a better dude. So I think, like, again, that's the only context of Ohio State was such an underdog against a dynasty, against the greatest coach of all time, that maybe would make a edge towards Zeke. Robert, Jack Sawyer's strip sack in return for a TD is way better than Zeke's. No offense to Zeke, because Jack had a heck of a play to strip the ball, then a heck of a bounce, then a heck of a run with a great convoy and screen to block. And then Robert has a big thing about like that it's Jack Sawyer. And again, Ezekiel Elliott was a defining player of that team, but now we're back to the backyard kid kind of stuff that Robert's whole family, his wife is screaming, his child is screaming. Like this is, I think he's on the boat of like nothing could be better than Jack's thing. And like I would not disagree with that. Name for the Sawyer TD, the Lone Star Scoop from Kevin in Chicago. Lone Star Scoop.
Yeah,
we could go with that. And then this is our guy Billy. Comparing the Sawyer Scoop to 85 yards through the heart of the South is a close one. I land on last night's play as slightly better. Here's why. When Zeke broke through, it sealed the win, but there was little risk in the seconds before that play that Bama was going to tie the game or anything bad at all was going to happen. Last night, Texas was knocking on the door of a game-tying touchdown. So the swing from the fear of losing the lead to completely sealing the win in one play makes Sawyer's scoop as the single greatest play in the history of Ohio State bowl games. That, I think, is very well said by Billy on the most compelling case for this, because Zeke's, I just double-checked it, and I'm sure there are Ohio State fans who have this ingrained in their brain. 1st and 10 with 3:24 left, and Ohio State was already up 6. Now, if they get stopped there, if they turn it over, like it's less than a touchdown lead, and you are pinned kind of deep. So the game wasn't totally in hand, but that is different than 3 plays earlier, Texas being up to 1.
Yeah, I mean, you had the ball anyway. Like if you're high in the Zeke, you had the ball with the chance to run the game out, right? And I was sitting there thinking, like, Texas got to the 1, and I like is Sark going to go for 2 if Texas scores?
Oh God,
yeah. Could you imagine? So I don't know that I have a lean on which one I think is better, but I think the stakes of what happened with Jack, that led to Jack's play, I think make it about even in my mind.
Yeah. A couple last ones I kind of missed before. This is Ezra. Here's the message I wrote after the drive where Ohio State got the 15-yard penalty after the Carnell Tate catch. I feel completely empty. Day saved his job, but it seems like we'll be stuck in this dance forever. In the biggest of games, his teams either run the opponent off the field or lose close, thanks to an avalanche of miscues. Can't win it all by blowing out every team you play. I'm not confident he'll ever change. I fully cop to the fact that they proved me wrong again. I'm praying they do it one more time. If they do, it's the greatest run in program history. This is Ezra. I think like this kind of stuff is so valuable. This is why people keep diaries, because how did you feel in the moment?
Yeah.
So again, this is back to, and I meant to use that one earlier. People gave up. Like as
People
much as we can say,
Yeah.
I don't know if we thought Texas was going to win. There were Ohio State fans who literally gave up and gave in to the narrative of Ohio State can't win these kind of games. That's where they were. And then distress and agony and angst and nerves makes the joy even better, according to life coach Bill Landis.
That's right. Yeah, but that's being a fan, right? That's the roller coaster you buy the ticket for when you decide you want to root for any team, but especially a team that plays games of consequence as frequently as Ohio State does.
And then Andy, and it's worth saying sort of like known obvious things sometimes because we have to acknowledge it. So I think Andy sent a great text here, and we'll finish with this. I want to have a bit of a Ryan Day and Jack Sawyer conversation because I think they're the two guys most responsible for Ohio State playing the way they are right now. And they're both doing their best work right now. Jack's playing out of his mind, and I don't think anybody can say the Ohio State team that's shown up in the last 3 days has been unprepared like they were against Nebraska and Michigan. Jack came back and prompted a lot of the experienced guys on the defense to stay. Without that, this postseason plays out differently with a less experienced defense. Now the younger incoming guys get to learn from these great players. This team has rallied around Coach Day and has helped him save his job after the Michigan disaster. All points that have and are being talked to death, but I still wanted to make that. And I do think it's worth saying, and in the end, and this is my failing of the recruiting book I wrote a couple of years ago, the guy that I did a chapter on from that 2021 class was Travion Henderson, because I really talked about like the Travion stuff during COVID and all that kind of thing. I did not do a chapter on Jack, but in the Kirk Herbstreit chapter I made a big deal out of the fact that Herbstreit was the first guy to commit after John Cooper was hired. And as a legacy, as a son of a captain, as an Ohio kid, that was very valuable. And Herbstreit, like I think, did it purposefully and very quickly after Cooper committed. Jack Sawyer is Ryan Day's first commit. And it's one of those things where it's like you reaffirm, like, I'm a real Ohio guy, just like Herbstreit was as a high school kid. I'm a real Ohio guy, and I'm saying I'm good with this guy. And that means something. And that is something that will always happen. We talked about it a lot with Urban Meyer when it comes to being the first quarterback that you choose to go recruit. He did it with Tim Tebow at Florida. He did it with JT Barrett at Texas. Hey, I'm here. I'm new. I'm staking my future right here in my new job on you. You're the quarterback I want. I think that's a huge deal too. But this is more the player. That's the coach choosing the player. This is the player like doing it for the coach. Yep. It's a stamp of approval. And Jack Sawyer gave Ryan Day his stamp of approval and then did all the things he did during COVID to rally that recruiting class. But there is something there with that part of this story that will never go away between Jack Sawyer and Ryan Day. And we saw their hug on the sideline. And then again, it's another part of why that Jack Sawyer was this guy in this moment is incredibly appropriate.
If Ohio State wins the national championship, if however much longer Ryan Day is here after that, Jack Sawyer, I think, will be the defining player of Ryan Day's tenure.
And we've done that. We've done that show. I've done that show at times, like the defining player of a coach's tenure. What a thing that is.
Yeah.
What a
and it's
thing
crazy
that
for as much of a quarterback guy as Ryan Day is, because that's what he is. Like it would be the defensive end from Pickerington.
My God, you're giving me chills, Landis.
Yeah.
All right. Let's be done. Let's let people get off the podcast wheel, get off the YouTube wheel, and go watch CJ Stroud versus Jim Harbaugh. We are going to have a ton of shows this week on Kings of the North. We are going to have a ton of shows on the podcast and everything we always do here with you and Berman Austin. We are going to have a show midweek on Kings of Columbus. We're going to go back to our texters for even more input. And then we are all getting to Atlanta on Friday. So we will have interviews and coverage, right? They're doing stuff around here this week. So we'll have updates on the podcast channel.
I can give you that.
With everything the Buckeyes are doing, right?
Yeah, I can give you that schedule quickly if you like. So Sunday, there's a Zoom with Ryan Day. It's just a Zoom. So we'll have that. I'd imagine we'll probably record something after that. Coordinators on Tuesday, I think around noon. So look out for that. And then players and Day again on Wednesday after practice. So that'll be Wednesday evening.
Okay.
There's an interview. There's a Ryan Day press conference on Friday at the airport when the team gets there. Full team media day on Saturday. We'll have a ton of coverage here and on KOTN off of that. Coaches press conference on Sunday. Same deal. Plenty of coverage off of that. And then the game is Monday night.
Okay. So we hope to see you guys here on this feed. If you haven't tried KOTN, I don't know if you noticed, but we got a Northern banger in the national title game. We'll be swinging our swords about that on Kings of the North. We'd invite you to join us there. But most of all, we're just grateful that you guys allow us to be on this ride with you, because it's your ride. It's this team's ride. It's this coaching staff's ride. But honestly, it's the fans' ride. That's what matters most. And we want to really talk about what you guys as fans have experienced this season. We'll do that later this week on Kings of Columbus. For now, thanks to our producer, Mike Yarostowski. That was Saturday Sound Off on Kings of Columbus.